odds are Josh gets the fire in the first try?
Oh, I'll give him 40%.
He's batting
40%?
He's batting about 60% right now.
Is he?
Expected to get. So because of that, I didn't order as much. And he just said he'd get me as many as he. Just try not to actually bump it, but as close as you can get to it without bumping. I constantly feel my beard hairs touching it when I'm talking. Yeah, if you feel your beard hairs touching it, you're probably doing good. That's gonna need another piece in probably 1 minute there, Timmy. I think I might have got it. If you played the odds, I think you're gonna work out okay on this one.
Give me one of these.
Fondle.
Warm it up a little bit, Nolan.
Yeah.
Come on.
Oh,
Nolan,
man. Time to pop.
This is, let's pop that top.
You can pop that top zone.
It's like pod number 15 or something, Josh Jones.
I swear you said 10 yesterday.
Well, 10 probably on the internet,
10
15
on the internet,
recorded,
yeah.
something like that.
First sip, I get it all over me.
Did you want to try a little stimulant to see if you can act like a crazy person?
Yeah, I'll take a sip.
Nolan does not do caffeine, so this should be funny.
Oh, take a good slug, Noli.
Man, did I... Hold on. Yeah, you might be beating me. You might have to shove that in there. Dang. Oh, terrible?
It's fine.
Yeah.
I like the taste of coffee. It's just the caffeine that kills me.
I'll get it. I'll do it. Come on, watch out.
If the audience wants to play a drinking game, they can drink every time either Nolan strokes his beard or Josh strokes their beard.
You're going to get drunk.
You get messed up.
Beard strokes. Someone put a beard strokes counter in the comments.
That'll be hilarious.
And timestamps.
Right?
I don't know, man. We're about to be pretty close to a little summer alternate set.
Well, I hope so, man. When it's warm outside and we light that thing, we start sweating our balls off in here. It's not cool.
Nolan, so the other day we made a video. The whole squad shot their bows, got out, did a little random release challenge, hey? Mm-hmm. The first thing Josh Jones says when you and I got picked, oh, good, the two fuzzy, quirky ones are together. So
was I wrong?
Nolan, what does Josh mean when he says that? What's a few of your quirks? Give us a quirk.
I don't know. I got all kinds of weird stuff about me.
We'll start with one.
Start with one.
I don't know. First thing that comes to mind is just my sense of humor. Which I don't know if that's quirky or just really dark.
I think it's dark and hilarious.
Yeah.
It's so good. God dang it.
I don't know. My taste in music, it's quirky.
I don't know about that, dude.
It's coming around. It's becoming more popular.
Your taste in music is far superior to Josh's taste in music, as far as I know that far.
The country fair music?
I like listening to some of the stuff no one likes to listen to. Some of the stuff that's got a little soul, right, Nolan?
What's the shit you blare in your car on the way in? Sounds like it's the fair. Nolan.
All kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
That'll range from...
Tell us about the weird stuff, Nolan.
Like John R. Miller to anywhere, Slipknot and Killswitch Engage.
Those are all fine.
I don't know. I got a big mix. It's a lot of folk and western and rock and metal and...
A whole bunch of stuff that doesn't really go together.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be bumping Willie Nelson like as loud as
I like
my
the
car
folk.
can go.
I like the western. It seems like it's a prerequisite in Josh's shop to like metal music.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't mean they like it, but that's what I have on a lot. But I turn country on. I turn Nolan's Culture Wall on by choice. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah. There's only a few stations where like I get a little edgy when the music starts playing.
Hey, what do you think about old Jelly Roll?
Dude.
Couldn't name a song.
Oh, he's good.
I know his face, but I couldn't tell you a song.
Yeah, he's had a couple of recent hits. Got a really just deep, vibey country song.
I think you'd like him.
You think so?
I think you would too. Yeah.
He's got your quirky vibe, and I think his music's
He's also
right
big.
up
And
your
he's
alley.
also big and fuzzy.
Yeah.
He's like giant and fuzzy. He's called Jelly Roll for a reason.
Yeah. I see his face like everywhere on like Facebook and stuff. So I know like who he is if I saw him, but I couldn't name a song.
Yeah, speaking of quirks, I was thinking about that on my way over. I was like, Josh called me quirky. What's that mean? I know I got some quirks. And I was thinking about the stuff that I have. I don't think I would fly if I couldn't fly next to the window on a plane.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like window seat. I'm big window seat. And if I had to sit in the aisle, it would have to be a hell of a destination.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Oh, dude, I'll hop on any plane pretty much.
Yeah. You got a window seat preference? Aisle? Window seat?
Aisle because I'm giant.
And you
and I can stick my legs out in the aisle when the cart's not going by.
And you got to go take a leak. You get to go freely.
I don't really care. It's the space. Like if you give me that seat right behind the middle door, there's not one in front of you. I'm gonna beat somebody up for that seat if I can.
Let them nuts
Especially
breathe
when a
little
little
bit.
guy sits there and you're right next to him and you're like, really?
Yeah.
Really, bro? Yeah.
No, I'm never that emergency door guy. I'm like, do not count on me for that.
Well, you only have to tell them that you'll man it. You don't really have to do it if it happens.
Sure.
Well, you hope it doesn't happen.
You pray it doesn't happen. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So Nolan's a big trad guy.
Nolan does like his trad, doesn't he?
Big
I do.
BTG. He's a big trad guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. It's pretty good.
He's got that big trad energy.
Now, you generally prefer to string walk, don't you?
Yeah.
Can you explain that to people so they understand what that means?
Yeah. So string walking is, if you got your recurve set up and you got where your arrow's knocked, the typical like string walking setup, you're going to start shooting 3 fingers directly under the arrow, and that'll give you like a random point on depending on your setup, depending on your anchor point. So for me, if I hold directly under the arrow on most of my setups, I'm right around like 33 yards. And then typically, the further you go down the string under the arrow, if you anchor to the same spot and use the same reference point to aim with, you're going to hit lower.
Yeah.
So for me, on most of my stuff, I'll drop it 1/2 inch, 5/8 of an inch until I get to about 25 yards, 20 yards. That's a really comfortable point on for me for hunting. And then if I'm doing more of a target shooting setup, I don't really have like a marked crawl. I'll just kind of know like each mark on my tab is a certain distance. So I'll have 30 on down to like 10 yards. Anything within 10 yards is pretty much just point and shoot.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just moving it up in your hand placement up and down on the string to get a different point.
And how do you tell how far you're moving it up and down?
So
you're not
me,
like taking out a measuring tape, right?
No. So for me, it's either if I'm getting just kind of like a rough baseline area, I'll count fingers. So I'll go, okay, my bottom of my first finger, that far down, put my thumb there, and move the rest of my hand down to where my thumb is, and that'll give me, about a 1/2 inch gap or so. That'll give me kind of the rough area to get started, and then from then on, I'm kind of just counting threads.
So you're
on the
counting
tab.
serving threads on.
Yeah.
Or you're counting threads on your tab.
On my tab.
And your holes in your tab are equidistant for counting the threads.
Yeah. It's handmade, so it's a little rough, but, I've got to where I know about what's what on my tab.
It's going to grab.
No, I don't think it's going to look at it.
All right, talk to Nolan and hand me a year later. And
Dude, I just did the paper thing twice.
don't worry about it. Just talk to Nolan.
So I don't know if I asked you this. Have you ever actually killed something hunting with your traditional bow?
I have not. I've gotten way too picky while doing it. I didn't do much traditional shooting, or at least not hunting last year. That was more, we went out for a couple weekends of mule deer with the compound. Then late season, I was, somewhere else, whether Hawaii or doing stuff with the family for most of the late season.
Yeah,
so I haven't with recurve, but I've let probably 24 does walk by at like 7 yards.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, not really what I'm looking for. Because, it's not something where I'm the only one in my family that's going to eat deer.
Right.
So if I don't get one, it's not a huge deal. And if I get one, I want to be able to be like, hey, look at that. That's something I shot, not like, well, I got a doe, because food in the freezer, it's just not something I need.
Yeah.
So if I don't need it.
Well, since you're moving away and changing your living situation, are you going to still address that the same way, or are you going to feel like you're a little more reliant on maybe the food? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, that's a good question. As far as like deer and stuff, I'm probably still going to be fairly picky. Because I'm one of those people where I hate seeing this stuff on like Instagram and Facebook where people are like, well, he's not the biggest, but it's something. I'm like, if you're not proud of it, why'd you shoot it? Like, if you're talking about it like, oh, I wish it was a bigger deer, then hold out for a bigger deer. I get if you need the food, that's great, but don't complain about something you shot.
Yeah, no, that's pretty foolish. I mean, and first of all, any animal harvested in the wild is a challenge, regardless of how big or small it is. So you should be proud of it, no matter what.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it from that standpoint, you probably shouldn't be doing it at all.
Yeah.
I've always hunted for my own food, and to me, that's a very large part of why I hunt.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of everything. I mean, if I end up shooting a doe, which I typically wouldn't, I try to expand our populations of game, so I try not to shoot females, but that's the purpose.
Yeah.
But typically a legal animal walks in front of me, and I'll typically shoot it for food.
Yeah.
Because that's why I hunt and why I choose to hunt. But
yeah, no, I'm a horn hunter.
Yeah.
I don't need the meat, so if it's not something I want to be looking at for the rest of my life, I'm probably not shooting it.
Gotcha. So how long have you worked for me, Nolan? For to clarify, Nolan is an employee, and this is his second to last day.
Yep.
He's been with me a really long time, and we wanted to get him on the pod before he moved away. So how long have you worked for me?
I don't know why I know the exact day, but it was December 2nd, 2019. So
that kind of creeps me out that you know that.
3.5 years, I think, roughly.
Is it? Been,
3.5?
I thought it was longer than that.
I would have guessed longer.
Because practically 2020.
Yeah.
2020, 21, 22, halfway through 23.
Yeah. No, you're about right.
Yeah.
Huh.
It was about when I started hanging around.
It was a
That's
couple of
very
COVID
similar
years,
timeline.
though, so it felt longer.
It did. Yeah. That was a very interesting experience.
Yeah.
Wasn't that month the best month ever?
That was a great month. Yeah. You probably weren't around for that too much, Timmy, but
I just remember it.
it was, doors are locked, music's blaring, or we just had, we went through.
We binge watched.
Yeah, we went through all of Star Wars, all of Marvel, all of Family Guy, halfway through American Dad. And just because nobody was in there, we could just kind of put whatever we wanted on. Everything was by appointment, so you knew when people were going to show up, and if they didn't have an appointment, you're like, well, sorry, there's not a lot I can do right now.
Yeah.
And you just kind of went about your day.
Just process the orders, get the stuff that was shipping out, and that's really when the shipping really took a big jump. But yeah, I thought it was a little before that, but yeah, that's about right. That's
because my last day at the feed store was
I remember that.
2 days after Thanksgiving. And so it was just the 28th of November, a weekend, and then I started Monday or Tuesday the next week.
So riddle me this, Nolan. Every traditional archer I've met to this point is a collector of traditional equipment. Mm-hmm. Is that everybody that gets into that rabbit hole?
Definitely this guy.
It's a lot of it. I wouldn't even call it collecting. I call it hoarding.
Yeah.
Because most of what I have, I wouldn't call collectible. It's just I want it.
So what's the infatuation when you're is it the thought maybe it shoots differently, or maybe it's going to be a sweet stick? I mean, tell me why when you see something that grabs your eye, why is it grabbing your eye?
One, I like old stuff. It's, I just like
got
anything
a soul
old.
a little bit.
Yeah, I especially the stuff, the older it gets, the more it was done by hand, the less machine work was on it. I've seen some bows that were pre 1950s, before the industrialization of a lot of this stuff, and just the craftsmanship on them is insane, and they're beautiful, and everything was done by hand. Mm-hmm. So that stuff's really cool. Even into the 60s, there's a lot of stuff like that. I've got an old Cougar and a couple wing bows that are all, most of it's handmade, and they're really nice to look at, and they shoot sweet. But I don't know, a lot of it is I'm just always looking for something else, and that's just my personality with everything. Okay, this one worked good. Would this one be better? And it's oh, that one wasn't better. And my mentality of go back to what I had, it's well, let's try a different one and a different one. It's the same way with disc golf. I've got probably around 300 discs now, and most of them don't.
We got to
get
get in the
used.
disc golf business, Josh.
Right.
Go buy 300.
If I was smarter, I probably would have gotten to that business
There's
while you
probably
were there.
margin in those, I bet.
I bet you there is.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 50% margin.
And
or
people
something
lose
on a lot
them
of it.
like arrows.
Yeah, people lose discs left and right. One of my favorite things besides disc golf is jumping in the river and snorkeling around for discs and stuff. And most of them I get back to people, one day about this time last year, I jumped in the river, pulled out 14 discs, and 10 of them had people's names on them. So I think 8 of them made it back to people. One guy never got back to me. And one guy was like, oh, where'd you find it? I'm like, oh, over at this and this park. I'm not going to say where because I want to go back there and look for more discs.
Sure.
He's like, oh, where in Dallas is that? And I'm like, that's in Washington. He's like, oh, weird. I lost that in Dallas. And so you'll have a lot of people that just, they pick them up, find them, play with them, they travel. I found a couple, no names when I was in Hawaii that are now back with me, and I use them. And so stuff likes to travel. But yeah, I'm always looking for that next thing because I'm like, oh, maybe it'll be better.
How many compounds have you got since you started working at the shop? It's been several. I know that.
Oh, yeah. So I started off when I first worked there. I had an Elite Synergy.
Yep.
Still
Which
have
you
it.
still have.
Yep. And then from there, I went to a Prime Black 5. which I still have. And then from there, it went to a Bowtech Solution, which I still have.
You're a brand connoisseur.
Yep. And then I picked up a Hoyt, whatever Brian's target bow was, that silver bullet.
Podium?
Yeah. I got one of those. Still have that. That's my main target bow. And then last year was a Hoyt and then a Bowtech. I don't have the Hoyt because technical issues. Mm-hmm. I still have the Bowtech. This year's a Darton. So 7 bows in 3 years, 8 bows in 3 years, not counting recurves.
He likes stuff.
Yeah, I like stuff. It's a problem. I don't know when to get rid of stuff or sell it, or I just like having it.
You have a hard time detaching, selling your old gear?
Yeah, I'm very sentimental over my stuff. Especially like the bows and stuff themselves, accessories I don't really care about, because I feel like there's always better stuff with accessories. But a lot of the bows I have, I'm like, well, even if it's not the best, there's something about it that nothing compares to. So I tend to hang on to a lot of them. And some of them I'll reshoot and use off and on. Like that old Elite is like 2016, 2015. It's still my backup bow. I still shoot it every now and then. And a lot of the recurves are the same way. I'll always break them out. But a lot of them I just have them because they got good memories on them and stuff like that. That's a big part of it.
Now you're self-diagnosed target panic haver.
Yes.
Tell
How many?
explain what
Go ahead.
Explain what that means. And really quick, when I've shot with you, the couple times I shot with you recently have been our little random release challenge.
Yeah.
And then we went to, what do we call that other shoot? That was
that was a 3D shoot down at the Bison Ranch.
At the Bison Ranch shoot. That was a cool shoot, 40, 50 targets.
Yeah, 40 targets.
Yeah, quite a few. And I thought you shot pretty good both times, particularly the Bison Ranch. I mean, I got to watch you shoot all day. I wasn't watching a lot of like trigger swatting or a lot of like pre-ignition stuff going on. So when you say you got target panic, what's that mean to you?
So my target panic, I'm not super punchy. I'm better at that than I used to be. I still punch every now and then. For me, the target panic, which it might be a form thing too, is I will put my pin on a spot and then I will watch it drop down about 6, 8 inches, maybe a foot, and it will settle about a foot low and it won't move. And there's nothing I can do to get it back up there besides like throwing the bow practically.
And does your pin come in from the top or come in from the bottom?
Typically it probably comes in just low of the target and settles on it and then just keeps
just a slow creep off.
Yep. And it's just no matter what I do.
It's like one of those bad dreams when you're driving in the ditch, like, no.
Yeah. And it's just eventually it'll stop. But like if I shoot at the 90-yard bail, it'll settle right around that bottom on the wood. And I got to kind of try and work it back up. And most of the time it ends up just being me throwing my hand up there and seeing what catches.
And have you found anything that's helped you?
Yeah. So I always find, I know my problem and it's looking at the pin and I don't have a way of not doing that. I've tried, just stare at the dot. I've tried, shooting with just a lens and nothing in it. I've always had different stuff. Everything helps me for like a week or two. Like when I was shooting a thumb button a lot for like indoor stuff, I'd be sitting down in that like 6 area and I'd find, if I really focused on how I manipulated my hand and really focused on putting pressure on like the pinky to kind of get my hand to rotate into the barrel, I was doing great. Everything was in the middle. And then like after a week or two where my body kind of, figured out that movement on its own and it wasn't me thinking about how to make the shot, I was back looking at the pin. And so I'm always trying to find something new to focus on to kind of keep my brain busy and not looking at the pin. Mm-hmm. But my brain wins out most of the time.
So you're a perfect example of why you should shoot like Joel Turner says to shoot.
Probably.
Because you're thinking about your pin and you're not thinking about your release.
Yeah. And when I think about my release, it goes a lot better.
It's just hard to stay there.
Yeah. And everybody, you said this, Joel said this, Chris said this. They're like, don't look at your pin. Yeah. And I'm like, well, if I'm looking through the scope, I see it. I see the pin. Even if I'm looking there, I still know the pin's down here.
You only know it's down there if you're consciously thinking about it. You're consciously thinking about it.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
I don't have a way where I can't not think about it. It's just, if it's in front of me, I'm recognizing where it is. Probably because I shot for years and years and years without anybody saying like, hey, look at what you want to hit, not at your pin.
Yeah.
So now it's just ingrained, like, all right, where's the pin at?
Yeah, it's going to take a lot to break that.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That release, though, that just came out, that might actually help.
I'm thinking so. I shot it a little bit when Joel was here, and it felt really nice. Just kind of, all right, there's my click. Just pull and pull and pull and kind of get it to go.
It forces your brain to think about that. Mm-hmm. And it forces you to be engaged on the trigger, not holding it off, trying to fire it.
Yeah.
When Josh says that release, he's talking about the Stan Onyx C.
Yeah.
Stands for click, and it's a thumb that you can engage a click through the thumb and then keep the mechanism moving and it breaks.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, but I have the same problem with traditional stuff too.
Oh yeah, no, I actually what you just described when I shot traditional a lot towards the end of it, I was like I get stuck below it and I'd almost find myself chucking it up as I'd fire.
Yeah,
and it still shot pretty decent, but I still get it now. Like when I'll pick up one of your bows when you're shooting and shoot like 4 or 5 arrows, I find myself getting stuck below it.
Yeah,
because I know I'm letting go. Mm-hmm. Right, and that's the thing is if you're making it go off and you know you're making it go off, after a while your hand starts to. No, I know it's going to go off. I'm trying to be prepared.
Yeah.
It's weird. You get stuck. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you have to get to a point where you don't know what's going off.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say I'm more punchy with a recurve than I am a compound. Like, I'll have moments where I do this a lot where if I feel like I'm shooting kind of like shit, I'll put my point on there and tell myself I'm not going to shoot. I'm just going to put my point on the dot. And there's so many times where, I'm shooting and I'll get to where my point is on there and my whole body collapses. And I just got to fight through it. And I've found that if I, tell myself I'm not going to shoot, I put my pin there, let my body collapse and kind of redo everything from there, I shoot great. But it's just telling myself I can't shoot the second the pin gets there.
Gotcha.
That's my bigger problem with recurve than holding low. But it's still there a little bit, but it's more that, which I think is more of a classic kind of target panic that most people go through. Like the second the pin's on it, you shoot.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the holding low, I'm sure it's still common, but I don't think it's what everybody thinks of when they think of target panic.
No, I don't think so.
What's your balance of shooting your compound versus your?
So I'll go hard on shooting compound for like a week in the spring. I'll get a setup made, I'll get a sight tape made, and then it gets set down for a good amount of time. I'll maybe pick it up once a month after that. And then most of the time is, I don't shoot a lot anymore. I'll shoot 2-3 times a week, and most of that's recurve stuff. And I feel like a lot of that's just because, like most people, if I set down a recurve, it takes a lot more work to get it back to where I was.
Yep.
Whereas, I've been shooting compound long enough where, we'll get it, roughly tuned in May, and we'll finish the broadhead tune like a couple weeks into August. And we'll run off hunting mule deer. Mm-hmm. It's never really been a problem for me to pick up a compound and just roll. I think I actually do better that way.
If you have target panic in that manner, you probably would.
Yeah.
The less you shoot, the easier it is.
Yeah. But the recurve upkeep is definitely a more constant thing.
Okay, let's circle back to that Joel's release thing for a second. Mm-hmm. The knee-jerk reaction on the internet is there's a crowd of people who are like, that noise will elicit panic. And my initial thought was like, dude, can you click the safety off of a gun? You know what I mean? Like, just because you hear a tick, it's not going to elicit panic. I think a lot of those people are speaking from a reference where they haven't put many arrows through something like that, or maybe just went through that, like, that mindset. Like, oh, the click actually means I'm engaged and ready to shoot.
I thought of a better way of explaining what the purpose of that is now.
Yeah.
That I've played with it a little bit, and I've seen a few other people play with it. Most people that are using a 4-finger trigger or a thumb have a tendency to keep their finger off the trigger.
Yeah.
And then try to fire it.
For sure. And that's
the purpose. The purpose of it is to force yourself to put your finger on the trigger and engage and squeeze until you hear the click, and then you know you're engaged.
And that's the worst version of the trigger punching is like when your thumb or your finger's actually floating off of the trigger.
Yeah, so it doesn't. You can't float off the trigger.
The first thing that really gave like me peace with Joel's system was when Joel was like, "It's the same as a rifle." He's like, "You're settling in, you're squeezing." He's like, "We just want the same thing with whatever release mechanism that you're working is like slow enough to stop it, kind of thing." Mm-hmm. And that for me was like, "Oh yeah, you can still shoot an index with a nice controlled fashion, just how you'd want to shoot a rifle. You can still shoot a hinge, rolling it or pulling on it just in a nice controlled fashion like you would with a rifle. It's just a different version of a trigger. And all of these trigger mechanisms, we just want to work through in a way where it's not a not a panic, not a grab, not a, you know.
Well, and it's a lot
There's
harder
a lot of ways
with,
you can describe that too, or whatever.
It's a lot harder with a bow just because the bow moves so much more. Your sight picture is moving so much more than it would with a gun.
And you're preventing an explosion.
Yeah, so people have a tendency to want to make it go off because they're seeing it move through the middle and come out of the middle, move through the middle and come out of the middle. And when you accept that it's in the middle 85% of the time, whether it looks like it is or not, then you can stop reacting to it and just keep pulling through it, which is hence the don't look at the pin. Because when you look at the pin, you're seeing it leave the middle and go back into the middle, and leave the middle and go back into the middle, and your body wants it to go off when it's in it.
Yeah.
That's why you don't look at it.
Yeah.
Your brain will put it in the way. You try to focus on the object, like really hard, like incredibly hard if you can't, or think about this.
Yeah. And that's definitely helped me more thinking about the back end than.
Yeah. I mean, if you can get your brain completely out of looking down there, you don't need to think about it at all.
Yeah.
If you can just work this, you'll get better.
Yeah. And
but it's going to have to take some reps.
Yeah. I'll have a lot of times where, I'll do really good about it. Like, I'll think about it after the fact even. Like, I'll shoot a decent group and I'll shoot like one really good arrow. And I'll think about it. I'm like, I don't know where the pin was.
Right?
Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I'll try and do that more. And like telling myself, don't look at the pin is the wrong thing to do. I just look at it. And so trying to find something that can keep me stimulated through the shot for more than just a week or two is what I'm trying to find.
Yeah, there were times when I took the dot away altogether, right, that I was just staring at the middle and you could see everything.
Yeah.
I would bet you $1,000 that was not in the middle when it went off and it went in the middle. But I managed to keep my focus on the middle and not look at it.
Yeah.
And it just went in the middle. It's wild.
It's wild.
It's wild. It is. It didn't make any sense. It's like, I swear to God, that was at like 7 o'clock on the 8-9 line. And it right in the middle of the target.
Yeah. Well, that's like, I first kind of heard that from like Jeff Burks.
Yeah.
Because he's a little shaky when he shoots. He's one of my favorite people to shoot with. I was fresh out of high school. I was like 18. And I'm sitting there and I'm just watching him go through his shot and it's just him shaking the entire time.
Yeah.
And the whole shoot, it was like that. And I was just watching him stack it in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where he just told me, he's like, yeah, it's fine that it's bouncing around. I'm not too worried about it because I'm looking at where I want it to hit. And I'm like, oh. And I did that for about a week and it went great. And then
you can't stay on one, can you?
I can't stay on I can't stay on anything. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Everything's got to keep moving.
So let's go back to when you first started working for me and you went through the whole COVID experience of locking down and whatnot. We had a good time. And then it was like once we opened the doors up, what was it like?
It was rough. Not necessarily. The people were fine. I feel like something between me and you just really went downhill. And
that's kind of what
it was a rough period there for a little bit.
Yeah, so
you guys beefing?
We always I'll try to explain it a little bit.
Yeah.
We always would what's the best way to put this? We've always had guys working there, always, and we'd always flip each other's shit and kind of hard on each other, and it was meant to be in a joking fashion. I wanted to bring this up because I actually feel like I learned more from Nolan working for me than any other one person. Made me realize some things that I really wasn't aware of, and it's probably gonna make me get a little emotional. But we always were like a little too hard on each other. And you got to a point where you were comfortable flipping me shit back.
Yeah.
And so I felt like, hey, we're flipping each other shit. It's okay.
Yeah.
And it went on for a while. Like it was like a year and a half,
at least,
probably. Yeah, it went on for like a year and a half, and I didn't know that you were really getting hurt.
Yeah.
And you came into work one day and wanted to talk to me and told me you were going to leave. And you just said, I just can't take it anymore. And I didn't realize I was hurting you, and I'd asked you, hey, at least give me a chance to try to correct it. I didn't know you were being upset. I thought we were just flipping each other's shit. I didn't realize you were getting hurt, and you gave me that opportunity, and it made me really think a lot about how I communicate to my colleagues and coworkers and whatnot, because I always thought it was in good fun and everybody was doing it. And I didn't realize I was hurting somebody, and it's made me look at everything I communicate with a lot different. And I I owe that to you, and I'm really grateful that you gave me the opportunity to try to work through that. And I like to think that we have a really good relationship now because of that.
I think we have a great relationship. And in that period, it was definitely a part of it, but I couldn't tell you. There was some reason I was just burnt out. I don't know what it was because it's not like a super stressful job or anything. No. But I was just there was a period there where I was just done, and part of that flipping shit was it's just like, all right, how far can I go? Like, what can I do before I just get fired? and a lot of that was just like, all right, what can I say? And
I think it probably stepped up on both parts because of that.
Sure. And and I ended up, I think, in turn, kind of hurting myself with your words. Just trying to see how far I could push it.
Yeah.
And I was ready to go. And for me, that was a really easy way of just being like, hey, I'm out because of this. When it was definitely it was a small part of it. And it was just a weird patch of getting burnt out and being like, all right, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then after that, everything kind of came back and everything was great. And it's been fine since. And yeah. And that was 2.5 years, 3 years ago.
Yeah. I'm just really glad that you gave me that opportunity and were honest with me about how you felt. And even if it wasn't, Grimes is calling me. That's not good.
Grimesy cat?
Yeah, pause for a second because he wouldn't call me during the pod unless something was really wrong.
Shop's on fire.
Hey, we're in the pod. What's up? Oh, no, we have been for like 20 minutes. Oh, God, Grimes is calling me during the pod. The building must be on fire or something.
All right, just hang up.
All right, bye. Oh, I didn't know you were doing that yet.
Justin Grimes.
Justin Grimes.
My new top pin partner.
Yeah.
I
think you and Nick might have to fight over that.
Oh, yeah?
You guys figure it out. Yeah, he knows, and you'll get it all figured out. But he's still going to go. So.
Nick wants to go?
Nick wants to go.
That's cool.
He was in this morning picking up his stuff. But yeah, I just I wanted to talk about that. Well, it was one of the points in my life that I actually felt really bad about, how I might be coming across, and how I might be communicating. And it's not very often that someone's willing to at least be honest enough with how they feel to tell you what they really think. And a situation that you don't think you will experience or see might actually be a very changing thing in your life. So and confrontation is a very good thing in that experience. And God, I wish you had said something to me 6 months earlier.
Yeah, and I definitely learned that kind of through that conversation because in my mind when we started that conversation, I'm like, all right, there's no way I'm not, walking out of here in the next week or so. Yeah. And it's been fine and everything's been good since. And it's definitely kind of taught me like everything's a lot easier if you just say something. Like keeping it all bottled up inside and trying to figure out something on your own that has to do with two people is never going to really get figured out on your own. Yeah. And it's...
Well, and I would preface that pretty much everybody was communicating that way, but for one reason or another, the way coming from me, it hurt you. Yeah. And it didn't really seem to bug you, or at least you said it didn't really seem to bug you from the other directions. It may have or whatnot, but at the time, who knows? But regardless, there's moments in life where you get the opportunity to reassess yourself and reassess how you communicate and reassess what's going on. Yeah. And I'm really grateful that you gave me that opportunity when clearly you weren't planning on it. Yeah. And it's like you've surprised me more than anybody that's worked for me, honestly. Like where we started out at and where it was going and how things were, you really way superseded my expectations. Yeah, I
remember there was a stretch in there where I was messing up everything, like left and right. And we had a conversation that was completely like separate from, the conversation we just talked about. It might have even been before that. But it was one of those things where he's like, dude, if you keep messing up this much, it's not going to be viable to keep you around.
Yeah, it's costing too much money.
Yeah, and, that was another one of those points where I'm like, okay, there's no real coming back from this. And But
now you're the person in the building that, mind you, your last day's tomorrow, and everyone's really going to miss you. I think I got you to give me a hug once or something and told you how much I was going to miss you.
We're at like 2 or 3 times total.
Yeah, I know. Nolan does not like hugs, by the way.
3.5 years.
He does not like any of that. Yeah. But you're actually the person that most people ask a question to anymore.
Yeah, and that's weird for me.
Isn't it? Well, but you have so much knowledge, and I think this is just my perception from, I've probably had 25, 30 guys work for me over the years, right? And traditionally starting in a very similar role that you did at a similar age with a similar experience, right?
Yeah.
And the progression that you've had is really just freaking incredible.
Yeah.
I think confidence was a struggle a bit, and I don't think it is anymore. And that's the thing that I actually like the most about what I do outside of obviously playing with bows and things like that. Is I like watching these probably somewhat shy, maybe not comfortable coming forward and saying something, might be a little quiet in the back of the room kind of person, or not raise their hand or whatnot, turn into the first person to talk.
Yeah.
And have confidence in themselves, because that's something that I don't know how many situations you get put in to be able to develop that a little bit.
Yeah.
And it just makes me really proud.
Yeah. And that was one of the things starting out where, like, I wouldn't talk to people. I just turn my back and kind of act busy and look away.
You would pretend like nobody was there.
he told me straight up, he's like, you're going to learn to talk to people. And I'm like, fuck that. I like being quiet. I like being on my own.
Well, I remember you bumbling around, dude.
Yeah.
And I remember at some point telling Josh, like, dude, Nolan's doing a good job.
Yeah.
I don't know when that was in that progression, but
yeah,
I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've definitely got more comfortable talking to people, because even the worst conversations have never been as bad as I amped them up in my head to be. So I'm like, well, if we just talk and get it over with, then it'll be fine. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of started to translate that to like every part of my life. Like, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Just get it figured out and go.
Dude, I'll tell you something that's changed a lot of maybe like my last 5 or 10 years is the first thing I'll do with somebody is treat them like a friend. Like, assume positive intentions, treat them like a friend, smile at people you don't know, or say hi to them, ask them how it's going, and you'd be surprised how many doors that'll open up, or just how most people are good and kind. Like, if you smiling at people is so underrated. If you smile at someone, it opens up so many conversations and stuff that, like, I never would have met people or prejudge them or whatever. That's like a little life hack for meeting people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But in any event, you got from making crap tons of mistakes, not really wanting to communicate with people, kind of being shy and standoffish and not happy to. You don't make any mistakes anymore. Yeah. Like I can't remember the last time there was a mistake made that you were responsible for.
Yeah, and that's just part of being there. I feel like that was a big part of that kind of downhill spiral we were going through for a little bit, and that I've kind of noticed more now than I noticed back then. And it's that if you care, you make less mistakes.
Right.
And that was one of the things where, I didn't care. I figured I was on my way out, so I didn't have too much attention to everything. And now, everything I do, I like what I do, and, I care. I want to make sure it gets done right. So, I ended up putting a little bit more time into everything and just more attention overall. Yeah. Less mistakes.
Yeah, there was a point where I would have bet money it wasn't possible for you to do that, and now I would put you before anybody on reliability of making sure it's actually done right. It's just it makes me happy, and I would have been pretty sad if I lost that opportunity.
Yeah.
From you, it just. Sorry, you changed me a lot, man. You really did, and I'm going to miss you. Let's clarify that Nolan's not really leaving. I mean, he is by choice, but he's his life has developed, and he's getting pretty serious. Yep. He's engaged, and it's time for him to live with the woman he's engaged to, and she doesn't live here. Yep. So he's got to move somewhere else. I think you'd probably still be working here without that.
I'd
probably
say so, yeah.
Yeah, at least that's the impression I got.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been really happy to have you, and you've, like I said, you've changed so much, and I'm really proud of that. Like I'm not worried about you.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be fine.
I appreciate it.
No matter what you do.
Yeah. I didn't think I was ever going to change, because, in my head I started out, 19-year-old, and I was just like, I don't want to change. This is who I am. Mm-hmm. And I still feel like in the ways that, like, I'm still the same person. But everything that I kind of felt like I needed to work on, that I was being stubborn about, because I'm like, oh, it's just who I am.
Yeah.
I've come a long way with.
I agree 100%. I think that I think the things that you were going to learn from our time together, you've learned.
Yeah.
and I think you're ready to move on and learn some other things. And the door will always be open.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you've done for us. And I've really, I'm gonna miss your witty banter more than anything, man. You're the funniest dude in the building, and that's gonna be sad. But I know you're gonna be okay, and I'm gonna look forward to seeing you when you come back.
Yeah.
With regularity. Wanted to, that's more the reason why I wanted to have that on, because talk about that discussion, and just realize that every situation that you have is an opportunity to learn, and grow from and become a better person, even if the situation is bad, which our situation was bad.
It was dark.
It was bad, and it was a bad time to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, there were so many things going on at that time. It'd be very easy to end up in that situation, regardless of what was happening in between the two of us. Nobody had ever talked to me like you had as an employee in my life.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, you're going for it.
Yeah. And that was a lot of that, like, all right, well, what can I say?
Well, looking back on it now, it's like, well, yeah, why not? Like,
Yeah.
if you're just going to go anyway, let's see how far I can go before he fires me.
No one's talking dirty to you.
Dude. Like, whoa. Like,
I remember,
holy
like,
shit.
years ago asking Forrest, like, if I get Josh to punch me in the face, will that be enough money to retire?
Well, I guess at that point, I was relatively patient. I don't know.
I didn't want it to happen, but I'm like, if it does.
Oh, that lawsuit's going to be sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I'd have to have a reasonable amount of money to sue me over, and I
Right.
didn't.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't do you a whole lot of good.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely not enough to retire unless you're going to
No.
live in a van and be a professional disc golfer, which might be the
Hey,
dream.
that's not all bad.
It's becoming more and more what I'm wanting to do.
Yeah. No, you have quite a passion for it.
Yeah, there's quite a few things, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I've picked up a lot of hobbies that I'd say are for other people, but for people that were never there, as in a way of like, I've always picked up hobbies because like, oh, maybe if I get good at this, people will know me for this, or people will know me for this. And, I've picked up and set down a lot of stuff because of that. I'm just trying to find something where I'm like, oh, maybe, I'll get known for this. And I feel like I'm finally starting to get to the point where I'm doing it for me.
That's cool.
And
As you should.
And that's more disc golf. That's more the music side of stuff.
If there's anything I think you can take away from this last 3.5 years is if you decide you're going to do something because you care about it, you're completely capable of doing it better than anybody else.
Yeah.
If you commit to it. And I believe you are completely capable of that, whatever it is you choose.
Yeah. And that was,
But embrace it.
yeah. And that's something I'm, a big part of what I'm learning because I picked up all those hobbies and then that was really, I think, almost more detrimental to me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have
Too
like a
many
real
irons.
passion for them. And I'm like, well, I couldn't do that. And I'm sure it's stuff I could have done if I really wanted to. But it was, once I realized, I don't really enjoy doing this. I'm doing it for somebody else. I move on to the next thing. And that ended up being kind of the same kind of subject. And it's hard to get good at something if you're not doing it for yourself. If you're
That's
doing
interesting,
it
dude.
for
Yeah.
somebody else,
Yep.
you're almost never going to get good at it. At least not, the best you could be.
Not great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're doing it for yourself and you're trying to almost better yourself through it, I think you're going to go a lot farther.
I agree.
And yeah, because if you don't want to do something, you're not going to do it well. At least
Right.
not as well as you could have.
Yeah.
And I'm finally starting to feel like I'm getting into those hobbies where I'm like, I'm doing this for me. I'm seeing what I can do because I want to, not because I think somebody else will, be like, oh, look at him, look at him go. Which is weird for me because I've never thought of myself of being like a people person or like an attention person. Typically I'm fine being kind of well off on my own, just kind of doing my thing. But I've always kind of wanted to have somebody be like, oh, do you know Nolan? He does this and this. Be like, oh yeah, I know him from that. And it's one of those things I've just kind of had to let go of doing something for other people. And now that I'm doing stuff for myself, that's happening more and more. Like, oh, Nolan, or like I'll see people playing disc golf and be like, oh, I saw a video of yours on YouTube of you playing like If I Were the Devil or something like that, one of the songs. And it's one of those things where like, yeah, I just do that for me because I I liked the song and I wanted to do it for myself. And now people are being like, oh, hey, I saw you on there. I'm like, oh, shit, cool.
Yeah, maybe doing things for yourself might actually get you what you were going for originally.
Yeah.
And then be happier.
Yeah, and it's really weird because I hate people bringing it up in the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm still kind of that, like, not a super people person. Some people bring up something I did. I'm like, oh, yeah, thank you. But then, like, looking back, I'm like, that's really cool.
Right.
So it's a weird mix of hating the conversation in the moment.
Yeah, it's the introvert in yourself coming out.
But looking back on it, I'm like, oh, I'm actually kind of doing this. Granted, I'm barely doing anything, but it's something and people are seeing it.
Yeah.
Which has been really cool.
It's a pretty intelligent outlook for someone your age.
Yeah.
For
to
sure.
realize that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And it's something that just came to me a couple of days ago, like where I really started to realize, I've been doing disc golf music for a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. And I've always, known I liked it. And then, last week when you said, all right, we're doing a podcast or something like that, or Monday, I started just kind of thinking back like, okay, here's the stuff I like to do. Why do I like to do it? And I'm like, oh, interesting. Like,
It occurred to you?
Yeah, it just kind of hit me that like, this is stuff that I'm doing for me.
Yeah.
It's been really cool to see. And it's kind of, even in this last week, got me way more motivated towards that stuff. Cause I'm realizing like, this is for me. Like it's something I'm doing because I want to do it, not because I think it's something people will find cool.
Don't ever lose
It's
that.
an important piece of advice, dude.
Yeah.
It's really important. I think it's okay to do things for other people. Those situations happen. You want to do things for your family. You want to do things for whatever your situation. But if you fill up your cup first, you'll be able to help others a lot more. But particularly doing things for yourself, like, and this is particularly, I think, is important when you're talking about creative outlets like music or painting, or, that could be building a house for some people, is like, if you can keep it pure and to what you want to do, your end net product will be so much better.
Oh, yeah.
And I've always felt that way about video. I've always tried to keep it pure.
Yeah.
And, there's certain feedback you can take, but largely, if you can do it for whatever's fueling you, then the net result will be way better because you'll do it longer, you'll do it better, you'll care about it more. And, it's a really good framework for things that you're doing or that are important to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, Nolan, how old are you?
23. I know I look like I'm 35.
Looks like he's 35.
But yeah, I'm 23.
Yeah. I mean, how would you get a 16-year-old to teach them that? Like that's a valuable lesson, but I don't remember when I started learning that. You know what I mean?
You have to live some life first.
Yeah. And
yeah.
I don't know what life I've really lived to kind of figure it out because, I don't know, I feel like I haven't been doing a whole lot, that would kind of inspire those like moments. But I think a lot of that's just music, just sitting by yourself and having something kind of in your ear that kind of just provokes thought. That's what a lot of my music is. I think partly just because I like the slower, sadder stuff.
Yeah.
That's most of my music. And I feel like that just gets your mind going a lot more than like party songs and stuff.
Oh yeah, I listen to sadder stuff for the most part. Now, granted, it's typically not slower, but I've come to appreciate a lot of it, largely because you'll turn it on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of like that. That's pretty good. But it's, what is it with, and I don't understand it, but what is it with the sadder, slower, depressing stuff that you're drawn to it?
I don't know.
It's weird. Are we depressed? Like, is that what that is?
I've honestly thought that a lot. And I'm like,
I wonder.
And I'm like, am I?
I always listen to that kind of music.
I'll have spots where I'll like a lyric and then I'm like, that's really dark. And then I'm like, am I okay?
Like questioning who I am as a person here.
Yeah, like I had one recently. It's a song I've been into for a while, but I just kind of like, I've always liked the lyrics to it, but I've never really thought too much about them. It's a song by John R. Miller. It's off like his first album. It's called In My Skin. And he says, if she's anything like me, she'll wish that I was dead. And like I've always liked that lyric, and I'm just like, I really started thinking about it. And
why do I like this?
Yeah, I'm like, why do I like that? He's talking about like, you know, he wishes he was dead. Yeah. Or like Seether, they've got the song.
Oh yeah. We are both large fans.
Oh, what is the song? I'm losing The Gift.
Yeah.
The Gift is an entire song about how it was, Sean wrote the lyrics. He's the vocalist. How he's talking about doesn't feel like he's good enough for the person he's around. And the lyrics are literally, I'm so afraid of like this gift you've given me. I don't belong here and I'm not well. And it's something like he's literally telling himself, I'm not good enough to have what I have. And I think a lot of people go through that and never really acknowledge it. Yeah. And I don't know, but that stuff is always connected with me. Maybe I'm depressed, maybe not. Who knows?
I don't know if it's depressed. I know I definitely grew up in an environment where I felt like I was never good enough, and I still feel that way. And I would guess that your dad probably frequently pushed you more. Or
that's the thing, not really. I had
mine. Oh, yeah, brutal.
I had a pretty easy childhood. I mean, like the only real thing I ever got pushed to do was just like play sports. Yeah, and I never really wanted to. But once I got into them, they were fun. There's never been too much of an expectation for me, besides myself. Like what I think of myself.
After our discussion, I had some pretty strong expectations for you.
Yeah.
Just so you're aware. We didn't talk about it, but I did.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, the music is relatable to that of somebody who thinks kind of lesser of themselves. Yeah. And I think part of it, the reason I like it is because it's comforting, not knowing you're not the only person that kind of feels those shitty thoughts about yourself. But I really don't know what the other aspect of it is that makes me love the slow, sad songs so much. There's just something about, hurting that I think is more relatable than any other feeling.
Well, I think as men in general, we're expected to not feel that way. Yeah. Right? And I feel that way a lot. Oh, yeah. And so do you, and I'm sure Tim does. I don't know. You're pretty happy-go-lucky, but in general, it's.
Might have got too dark.
I think,
for Tim.
Yeah, I think part of that, really, I truly believe part of that is because we don't feel like we can express it.
It's amazing how many people are drawn to those things just to express themselves. Yeah, yeah. Like people say things in a song that they would never say in a conversation. Yeah.
If you did, somebody would be like, "Wait,"
or in a video,
you need help.
Yeah, exactly.
Different creative outlets or whatever. I thought about that recently. Is like in music, a lot of times this Jelly Roll song is like, the music is that version of expression and emotion, and I don't know. That's what makes it powerful when people can connect with it. Is like there's real emotion, there's real stories, there's real things people can feel, and it's interesting, man.
I'm willing to bet that's probably why you're drawn to it. Because I know I'm drawn to that stuff a lot because I feel like I've always felt like from at a young age I had a lot of expectations. Yeah, and a lot of people relying on me, and so I can't have weak moments. I can't rely on everybody else to help me. I need to be available and present so everyone can rely on me, and I can take care of everybody because I felt that responsibility. And I think largely that's why I'm drawn to that kind of music. 'Cause it's like my outlet for that struggle that I don't feel I can really have.
Yeah, and that might be part of it, and like more I think on it, why I like a lot of that stuff. Especially just, it feels like being my age, trying to do a lot of stuff is just hopeless. I'm sure a lot of people my age just feel like, what's the point?
Sure. Well, I'd say probably a lot of white males your age feel that way.
And it's, why bother?
Yeah.
And it's just, having something where, it's somebody else kind of saying that same thing and you can connect on it. And just having a space like Tim was saying where you can say whatever you want pretty much, and everyone's like, oh yeah, I get that, it's part of the song. But you can't just say in a conversation like, why the fuck am I trying anymore? What am I gonna do? There's not a future that I can see, not necessarily with yourself, but just with the world where I'm gonna be able to achieve the things I want to achieve. And I think that was a big part for me of being so hard on myself, is kind of being told by people my age or a little bit older, like, hey, you know, by the time you're this old, you're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to do this because it's not going to be something that like society is going to like have access to. Mm-hmm. And so I think maybe a lot of that music stemmed from my expectation of like, I've already failed and I haven't even started yet.
Sure.
Because, you know, what am I supposed to do if it's already gone?
Yeah. Well, I for that, I would say that regardless of what anybody tells you, you can accomplish what you want to accomplish no matter what it is. You just have to outwork everybody and never quit. Yeah. You only fail when you quit trying.
Yeah. Well, and it feels better to try.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
even if you try and fail, it feels way better.
Yeah, if you don't get to whatever the thing is, the moving goalpost that you want to get to, like at the end of the day, you'll feel better trying. Like you'll be more proud of your effort. And most goalposts, it's like, you know what I mean? They're going to move anyway.
Yeah.
You know, you want to make $100, then you want to make $1,000, and then, you know, you want to have a house or a car. I mean, it's like the goalpost often moves anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's just better to be like proud of your effort. And
yeah.
And and then figuring out those things that make you tick too. Like if you're serving that, you'll be, you'll feel good about your effort and where it's going.
Yeah. And that's something I'm starting to realize more and more. I feel like I'm weirdly hitting this like phase of adulting really quick where I'm just starting to kind of snap into stuff.
Mm-hmm. Like you've been living in a fog.
Yeah, almost.
There's like a young fog. I remember that.
But it's just like, I'm starting to realize now, even like on a weekly basis, you know, if I go and try to do something on the weekend and some shit goes wrong, it's like, oh, yeah, you know, that wasn't the greatest idea, but, you know, got some memories and I did something, you know, if it didn't really work out. And if I just sit on the couch all weekend, I feel like the biggest piece of shit ever. Just because I didn't do anything and knowing that I just kind of sat there and wasted some time when I could have been doing literally anything.
Yeah.
So that's definitely got me out there just trying to do more stuff, whether it's recreationally or trying to make advancements in something. I'm just trying to be out there more.
The older you get, the more you realize your most valuable commodity is time.
Yeah.
The more of it you waste, the worse off you are.
Yeah.
If you have time, use it because it's more valuable than money. It's more valuable than possessions. It's more valuable than even relationships. If you don't have time, you have nothing.
Yeah.
They had a speaker in elementary school that came in and asked like everybody, "What's the most valuable thing in the world?" And like everybody was, "Oh, what can you do with what do you need to do anything?" Mm-hmm. You need time.
Yeah.
Nothing is more valuable than time, so don't waste it.
Yeah, and
there's a lot of songs about that, right?
Yeah.
Anyone near end of life, they're not wishing for anything more than time. They're not wishing for more money. They're not wishing for anything else. They'd want more time, more memories, more time with the people they care about.
Time, hookers, and cocaine.
Or doing what they love or whatever.
Yeah. There's some like, it's some kind of like inspirational reel or something on Facebook I've seen it a couple times now. Yeah. It's somebody asking like, you know, if you had like $10 million, would you take it? And they're like, oh yeah, for sure. And they're like, all right, if you had $10 million but you died tomorrow, would you still take it? And they're like, oh, no. And he's like, okay, so you're saying you'd rather have that time just having more time than the money. They're like, oh, yeah, of course. And it's like, okay, why are you not acting like that every day then? Just trying to make the most of your time.
Because you always think you have more time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the older you get, the more you realize it is. So, I mean, whether it's a grandparent passes away, a parent passes away, a near-death experience happens, etc. Those things wake you up to realizing you only have so much time.
Yeah.
And then it's like kicked into high gear of how important your time is.
Yeah. I don't think I've had one of those experiences yet to really kick me into that gear.
Yeah. But you saw me have one of those experiences.
Yeah, that might have been kind of what did it because, like, you know, we've always had family and stuff around us, but, like, when my grandma died, you know, we weren't that close. Yeah. And so it wasn't really something big for me. When my dad's uncle died, it was just like, oh, yeah, that's just part of it. Just keep moving on. And so I don't know what's really kind of made me realize, like, hey, time is, you know, like the biggest thing that we were talking about. But yeah, I don't know if like I've kind of gotten there and realizing that without that moment, or I think I'm there and I haven't hit that kind of brick wall that wakes me up.
I'm willing to bet you're somewhat there, but you'll get kicked into high gear at some point, which I was more aware of time being important and valuable when my grandma died.
Yeah.
But it kicked into high gear when my dad died.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, hold on. You need to reassess
and that was
what
one
you're
of the
doing.
3 hugs.
That was one of the 3 hugs. Nolan did give me a hug when my dad died, and that meant a lot to me.
And life's a journey. I mean, things change and evolve, right?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Different things are just different at different stages of life.
All of it changes you, and hopefully for the better.
You got a guitar Nolan can pluck up in here for us before we sign off?
That thing's so out of tune, it's terrible. I should have had you bring yours.
I thought about it. I'm like, no, I won't be that guy.
Well, you
dude.
Where'd you post it? You posted it on Facebook, didn't you? Or did you actually put it on
Facebook? There's a couple on YouTube. I think the first 2.
You're editing this one, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, you are. This is your turn. Find his and link them at the bottom so you can see.
We always put links for people.
Yeah, I'm letting you know they're there.
The first 2 are on YouTube. The first one was it's a Randy Travis song. I can't even think of what it is now. Yeah. The second one was If I Were the Devil by Colby Acuff.
Yeah.
He's actually a North Idaho kid. Mm-hmm. There's a third one out on Instagram with the rest of them. That is The Bullfighter by Luke Bell. Rest in peace. He passed last August from a fentanyl thing. So one of those guys where he's gone too young. We never really got to see what all he had in store.
Yeah.
And then there's a fourth one coming out, which we actually just finished filming Monday. And that's going to be some people know it as a Childers song. Some people know it as a John R. Miller song. He's the guy who wrote it originally. Mm-hmm. And it's called Coming Down. And it's one of those songs where it's just kind of wishing you can go back and kind of fix everything you did before.
Yeah.
They're all going to be on Instagram. I think the first 2 are on YouTube.
Have you tried writing any stuff yet?
I've tried. I don't know. I'm not great with the wording stuff, and I think part of that's just me being impatient. Because I think, I should be able to get this done in a day, or I should be able to get it done like in a session, and the words just aren't coming to me. And I haven't. That's been a lot of my deterrents with most of my hobbies. It's not happening right away. And setting it down and walking away.
The thing about ideas like that is they often come in sparks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's at least the best practice is when you have one of those sparks is just jot down some notes. Yeah. Keep a running iPhone note. Then you might find a melody or a verse or something you can expand on, because they come in sparks. And if you just sit down I'm going to sit down for 4 hours and write down my ideas.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work that well. So having just a running log.
Yeah.
And you don't need to give yourself a timeline either.
Yeah, I think that's been a lot of my issue.
Because sometimes it's like the fear of getting done prevents people from doing it, right? Like, to write this book is going to take me 5 years. I'm not even going to start.
Yeah.
And it's like that old thing, if you just write a sentence a day, often that will expand on to the next thing. Or you write one sentence, but you actually write 5 because you're in the discipline of writing and doing it, whatever.
Going. Yeah. And there's guys that have talked about that a lot. One of the musicians I follow a lot of his stuff, and I listen to pretty much everything he's put out is Benjamin Todd. He's another kind of one of those small time, kind of his own label kind of guys. But he's got, a whole interview kind of with one of the guys that helps him make videos about where his just whole songwriting process and everything. And he talks about it. He's like, there's some songs I've put down in 5 minutes. I've got songs that I started 4 years ago that I'm still adding, a line or a word here and there. And it's just kind of a slow just tick, and eventually it'll get done and as it comes to me.
Yeah, I'm fascinated with writers and writing and all those endeavors, how people get their work done, how they go about it, because there's a lot of ways to slice it, right?
Yeah.
But there's definitely some best practices. And I write stuff and write ideas, concepts and stuff that I'll operate from. But I think the further I go with making videos, the more I'll occasionally produce something that's more written and thought out and just like deeper pieces. That's just interesting to me. Because when you get to the pinnacle of doing stuff like that, like it's all written. It's done by writers. It's written out by actors. I mean, everything is thought out. Yeah. And I think often people get this illusion that, I'm going to be a comedian and just be myself, or I'm going to be a video maker and I'm just going to record what me and my friends do. And there's like certain pieces you can do that kind of thing, but also there's a reason that, a lot of the biggest stuff, most successful stuff has all that effort and put into it. Yeah. So there's give and take to both styles, but I think it's important to understand both styles too. Yeah. I definitely like some of that more written, produced kind of ideas and concepts, and it just fascinates me. So, yeah.
Well, I know for me, my creative outlets are typically my product ideas and things like that, and I those rarely come to me all at once.
Yeah. Sparks, like, right?
Here's an idea.
Yeah.
All right, jot it down. Keep it in the back of your head, that kind of thing. And then when more of it comes to you, you elaborate on it and elaborate on it and elaborate on it, and eventually you have something that's relatively good. But it usually doesn't come out in one time.
Yeah, and I've got like little notes and stuff like and like not even like a line from a song, it's like an idea for a song or like something I thought of like, this would be a good like title for a song, and I kind of tried to work off like how would that play into the song. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just I don't know. I don't consider myself like a truly creative person.
You're very creative,
and I think it's just I kind of label myself as not creative because
I didn't either.
I haven't. Given
I still feel
myself
that way.
You're both
time.
You're both incredibly creative.
It's taken me a long time to learn that things that I didn't think I was creative, but things that I did were creative. And then I was like, I was actually feeding that spark. And I still don't label myself as like the most highly creative person, but I like feeling that spark.
Yeah.
It's just like it's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reason I have, I tell myself like, I'm not creative is because I see people who will just like sit down and just do something all at once. I'm like, that's being creative. No. And then when I can't do it in 15 minutes, I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with me? I guess that's just not me. And I'm more made to follow what somebody else has had the idea for.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get more into that mindset of it's not going to happen all at once. And if I try and just sit down and make it happen, it's not going to happen. And it's been a while since I just like sat there and thought and like maybe just seen if anything would come up. I think I definitely need to get to the point more where, I tell myself I'm not creative, and apparently other people think I've got that.
You're the most witty person I've ever met. So, your brain like picks up stuff so quick. You're stupid creative. Yeah, you really are. Give yourself a little more credit.
Sit down and just kind of write down my thoughts, and not necessarily try and think of something. Yeah, just kind of sit down and put a song on or put a show on, and just kind of write down what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and don't compare yourself to other people and how they get to their place, right? Like just do your thing, and if you're enjoying it, you're enjoying the process, or it's something you want to work towards, that's cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I like it, Nolan. We appreciate having you around, man.
Yeah. It's good to be here.
Gonna miss the hell out of you.
You've helped me with many.
It's gonna be weird. Yeah,
I know.
Like I was telling you earlier, it never really hit me until today that I was leaving.
Yeah.
Because I sit up the stairs. I do most of the eBay stuff. So if you buy something off there, thank you. And if you buy something then don't pay for it, we have issues. I was sitting up there.
I kept waiting for fuck you.
I was thinking about it like, fuck you.
There you go.
I was sitting there, and Doug leaves at 2, so I'm getting ready to do this. I'm like, all right, Doug, I'll see you. And then I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to see you.
Yeah.
Because this is it, and then I'm heading down to Lewiston after work tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things like, I'm really doing this.
Yeah.
And
well, I like to think we're kind of like a family.
Yeah.
And you're leaving your family, so it's going to be weird.
Yeah, it'll be weird.
And you're going to be missed, and you're going to hear from everybody. And I'm sure I'll see you. I'm sure you'll be up and whatnot. But yeah, you're growing up.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's just a changing chapter, you know.
Yeah. But you can always come home.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, fire's out.
There we go.
Thanks for coming on, Nolan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And by the way, Nolan and I are undefeated as a team.
That's true.
So whatever you do, don't challenge again.
No. So we'll get another one on the books. We're undefeated.
Well done, buddy.
Pod in the hopper.
I thought for a second there I was going to get a tear out of you. But not even a little?
No.
You weren't feeling nothing?
No.
God, I about cried.
I know, I saw that.
Thought I might get you if I did it.
This probably fucked me up because I'm such a lightweight. There were a couple of moments where I had to think about like, why am I grabbing the chair? And I realized because I felt myself just kind of leaning over from one.
The first 5 minutes, I was like, you better drink that.